guys, make sure to like and share this part in particular, because this is going to be kind of like a very specific subject we're tackling here. Because we've talked about this before. We talked about Hunter Biden and Burisma. We've talked about how Igor Kolomoisky is actually the major owner of Burisma and how he sort of had these connections with Hunter Biden. We also talked about how the connections with Zelensky and Igor Kolomoisky and the Azov Battalion and the funding and how he was created essentially to run under the Party of the Servant of the People, which was the same name as his show that he did. So thankfully, we didn't have to see Zelensky last night. I thought they were going to give him an Oscar, but they snubbed him. So I want to talk about Hunter Biden's now confirmed ties to the millions in funding for U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. So it wasn't just the Burisma ties and the holdings, and it wasn't just the laptop. It was what has been found, especially since we've been talking about the U.S. and Victoria Nuland admitting that they have biological research facilities. And so, you know,
research.
Yeah, and just shifting the blame and the conversation to, well, Putin, and we don't want Russia to get their hands on it. Well, there are very, very huge ties to Hunter Biden funding these biolabs. And by the way, of course, that implicates Joe Biden, that implicates several politicians, and the Department of Justice, though, you know, they're in on the whole thing. They're not going to do anything. They have to put this information out there, but you'll see how it's framed. So this is a Daily Mail, and they put out this article with basically just the whole rundown of everything. And they say Hunter Biden did help secure millions in funding for U.S. contractor in Ukraine specializing in deadly pathogens research. Laptop emails reveal, raising more questions about the disgraced son of then vice president. So this is, of course, during the time when Joe Biden was vice president under the Obama administration. The Russian government held a press conference this past Thursday claiming that Hunter Biden helped finance a U.S. military bioweapons research program in Ukraine. We're going to watch some of that press conference. However, the allegations were branded as a brazen propaganda ploy to justify President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine and sow discord in the U.S. Which
can you get to the next slide? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. This is what they're going to say always. That the allegations were, of course, Russian propaganda. This is what they're saying, that this is conspiracy theory. But this is not conspiracy theory. They were saying that about the biolabs, the existence of them in the beginning. Remember, we were told that it was conspiracy theory. It wasn't, and neither is this. Emails and correspondence obtained by the Daily Mail from Hunter's abandoned laptop show the claims may well be true. So again, remember the laptop and the talk we didn't have access to during the election because they decided that it was too much and that it would hurt Joe Biden, and the media censored it, Twitter censored it. A lot of people got taken down for sharing that information, particularly from the New York Post. These emails, though, show that Hunter helped secure millions of dollars of funding to Medhurst, a Department of Defense contractor specializing in research on pandemic-causing disease. So, of course, this is bigger. We could be here all day to talk about, you know, tying this to the pandemic, but let's get to really what was in that document first. Hunter Biden allegedly introduced this Medhurst to corrupt Ukrainian politicians and the Ukrainian gas firm Burisma, which he sat on the board of, right? And he's introduced it for a, quote, science project involving high biosecurity level labs in Ukraine. The president's son and his colleagues invested $500,000 in the Medhurst through their firm Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners.
Here it is again.
They have raised several $1 million of funding for the company from investment giants, including Goldman Sachs. And they had to really do everything right to be able to get that money from Goldman Sachs. So the Russians went on, and the commander of the Russian Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Protection Forces said that there was a scheme of interaction between the U.S. government agencies and the Ukrainian biological objects, and pointed to the financing of such activities by structures close to the current U.S. leadership, which obviously is a problem. In particular, of course, like as we mentioned, the Rosemont Seneca, which was headed by Hunter Biden and still is. So they've released a series of documents that I recommend everybody go through and read them, because you're not going to be able to see them very well on the screen. But this is an email from Mary Gutierrez and to Hunter Biden. And this is the Metabiota vice president. And this is on April 2014. She sent him a memo outlining how they could assert Ukrainians' cultural and economic independence from Russia. Thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to meet with Kathy DeMio, a Metabiota executive, and I on Tuesday. We very much enjoyed our discussion. So what does a biolab have to do with asserting Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia? Pasta, before I continue, I want to ask you, what does that have to do what with cultural independence, fam?
What is your question, fam? I'm sorry.
What is Hunter Biden and this biological research facility have to do with exerting Ukraine's cultural independence from Russia? Because this has nothing to do.
I have no idea.
Exactly.
I have zero clue, fam. I thought it was a trick question. I'm like, what am I missing?
No, it's not a trick question. That's exactly the point. This is what they're saying. They're saying this is about Ukraine's cultural independence from Russia. So we're going to go and experiment with these pathogens and this biological research facility, which makes zero sense unless you start understanding the connections. So let's continue. So there is the contract from the Department of Defense, the awarding agency, awarding $18.4 million to Metabiota Incorporated. Okay, there it is, straight right there. The usspending.gov, you can go find it yourself. And so that the Department of Defense is obviously implicated. This is obviously not just Hunter Biden's doing. This is the Department of Defense involving in this funding. Now, Metabiota, according to the Daily Mail, has worked in Ukraine for Black & Veatch, a U.S. defense contractor with deep ties to the military intelligence agencies, which built secure labs in Ukraine and analyzed killer disease bioweapons. And of course, if you remember the interaction between Victoria Nuland and Marco Rubio, where they warned that Russian forces are trying to get control of these biological research facilities. They didn't call them biological weapons facilities, but that's exactly what they are. And admitting that they exist by saying that, but saying that they were afraid Putin would get to it. And so what's been discovered is that Hunter Biden and the Rosemont Seneca technology facility that he was ahead of raised millions of dollars for technological companies that would eventually take off and make them more money. And these technological companies, of course, dealt with these pathogens. And Metabiota was one of these firms or one of these companies. And you can see the emails between their colleagues on how they were going to just have how this was going to help Ukraine's independence and how it was going to become a tool for governments to look for outbreaks of infectious diseases. And granted, this is interesting considering that this is 2014 and the pandemic didn't happen until 2020. And so Mary Gutierrez, of course, wrote a memo to Hunter Biden, like we just said, that because of this whole thing, if they continued funding this, that it would assert Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia. And we are kind of went over it, but she said, as promised, I prepared the attached memo, which provides an overview of Metabiota, our engagement in Ukraine, and how we can potentially leverage our team, networks, and concepts to assert Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia and continued integration into Western society. So right here in 2014, in April of 2014, you have a motive. You have the Department of Defense involved. You have millions of dollars involved. You have the son of the then vice president, the current US president of the United States. Imagine Donald Trump being tied in this.
Yeah. Yes.
One. Two, this shows you that there is some sort of attempt to use some sort of biological weapons to perhaps, as many of us have suspected, plant a false flag. Now, this is me. Now, this is not what's in the document. This is me telling you. This, to me, infers that there was a plan to use a bioweapons created in Ukraine with U.S. funding, Department of Justice funding, to create a scenario where Ukraine could use said biological weapons to assert their independence from Russia. Because there's no way that that has anything to do with cultural independence unless you're talking about either biological warfare, a false flag operation, like we did in Syria, in the Duma type of situation, and manipulating it that way. So far, Pasta, I just want to hear what you think about what I just said.
Well, fam, you're not that far off, because there's been a lot of talk about the particular type of bioweapons that they are trying to create over here. Now, I don't think that it was the U.S. contracting it out to the Ukrainians to say, hey, we'll build you this weapons that will kill Russians. I think they were saying, we're going to build weapons and you're going to help us out, and then we're going to get rid of the Russians. Like, in other words, they're saying some of these bioweapons can really, would concentrate, like, as far as like, and I think that's what that maybe when we look at the whole, I don't want to talk about it now because we're not on Rokfin only and stuff like that, but with this whole situation. But we just went through for a couple of years with this whole unknown virus. Well, they were saying in some of these labs that they can actually target specific people, down to their race, down to their genetics.
Their DNA.
Your DNA. Like,
yes.
You know what I'm saying? And that's some crazy stuff. And that people will tell you, oh, you just got a tinfoil hat on. Like, no, this is very, very serious. They've been trying to work on these weapons for quite some time. And the whole thing, the whole craziness about it is, like, obviously, they used to say they used to work with these here in the States, and now they're denying working on any gain of function. But the whole process in which they give you the excuse, like, okay, these are research facilities, fam. We are researching cures for diseases. Well, how do you know how can you research a cure for a disease unless the disease exists? Well, don't ask us that question, because that's the whole thing. They create the disease to create the cure for the disease. And it's just mind-boggling when you think about it. There's a lot of dark stuff going on over here, fam. This is just more evidence to it. I don't think that Hunter Biden is involved in science. I don't think he likes science at all.
He's involved in the funding, though.
He's involved with the economics, because they did say cultural and economic dependence. And it was one of those things like, hey, the United States is going to watch our back. They're going to take us into NATO. We're going to be flush with the IMF loans and stuff because we're going to take care of Hunter. And that's that. We're going to play ball. And so he was just, his face got thrown. You know who else is involved in this stuff too, fam? And I hate to say it, George Soros, with a lot of these things that you're talking about right here. These particular lines over here, there's a Soros lines as well.
47, actually. Slide 47, so one back. We didn't get to go through that one. But Pasta, you're absolutely right. And this is the U.S. operation using Ukraine to do this. This is why I say that Ukraine ceased to be a sovereign nation in 2014, because remember, this is also during the Maidan coup and the intervention period. So how do you say that this is not a country that is mostly dominated by Western NATO interests? This is not a sovereign Ukraine. It stopped being a sovereign Ukraine at this point, and developing these bioweapons so close to Russia's border, that was always going to be a problem.
Yeah. I wish I knew for sure that I can really, give us
what you said too is real about the DNA. I saw that. I wanted to put it in, I think, a few weeks ago. Maybe I'll put it in next time because this stuff gets really deep. So
and if it is the way you said it is, fam, where it's Putin, realizing, hey, I'm not playing with these globalists anymore. I'm done with these assholes. And is now going to be like, we're going in there, we're wiping out your biolabs, we're going to denazify the country, and that's it. You're not going to have a puppet on my border anymore, and you're not going to kill ethnic Russians on a daily basis. It's not happening. The biolabs are something that could put him over the top. Somebody was asking me that question. They were like, literally, and we went out this weekend, fam. You can talk to about it with Steve later. We met a lady who was really into Rumble and Steve Bannon. She asked us if we believed in adrenochrome. That's what she asked us. She, was like talking about like what Putin is doing is right. And he's getting rid of these biolabs that exist. This crap's been going on with these people for so long. You know what I'm saying?
It has been going on for a long time.
So for a while.
Yeah. So this Gutierrez lady, Mary Gutierrez, that was in the emails, had a leading role in the Medhurst Ukraine operation. She met with other executives, the Ukrainian military officials, etc., on October 2016 to, quote, discuss the cooperation and surveillance and prevention of especially dangerous infectious diseases, including zoonotic diseases in Ukraine and neighboring countries, according to a US 16 report by Science and Technology Center in Ukraine. Hunter, of course, was on the board of Burisma at this time, as we all know, and it was owned by Mykola Zlotkevsky, which we know is actually owned above that by Igor Kolomoisky. And 4 days after Gutierrez's April 2014 email, Vadim Pozharsky wrote to Hunter revealing that the then vice president's son had pitched a science project involving Burisma and Metabiota in Ukraine. So Hunter is not a very smart guy. He's also an addict, especially at this time, from what we know now. And they're using him to be like the funder, like the bridge between the Department of Defense and of course the scientists, the people that are actually doing this. And you can look at this graph here by the Russians themselves because they're very organized. They did this whole graph, and this is Russia's defense ministry that put this diagram out on Thursday with arrows connecting Biden, Soros, and the Democratic Party to Ukrainian biolabs. And they have right there the connections. Obviously it's in Russian, but you can still kind of see the CDC's involved. You have every major industry and Soros, as you mentioned, of course. And it's crazy. It's crazy, but they're alleging this. So it's not, if we were to say, oh, I think, the gain of function research is happening in this, it was happening then, people would say, well, where's your evidence? But here is what Russia is essentially asserting that. And it comes from this meeting too, and other meetings where on October 3rd and 4th of 2016, and Leave Ukraine, a trilateral meeting with representatives of Ukraine, Poland, and the US of America convened to discuss regional collaboration of biological security, safety, and surveillance. And attendees included government scientific experts who discussed regional cooperation and surveillance and prevention of especially dangerous infectious diseases. And you guys can see that they had this meeting, highlights and accomplishments. And so it included a chief veterinary officer of the National Veterinary Research Institute in Polway, Mr. W. Skorupski, who led the Polish delegation, which included subject matter experts from the same organization. And it's crazy, but the meeting focused on existing frameworks, regulatory coordination, and ongoing cooperative projects in research, surveillance, and diagnostics of a number of dangerous diseases, such as avian influenza, leptospirosis, Crimea, Congo, hemorrhagic fever, and brucellosis. A special session was devoted to the current increase in cases of African swine fever. So, I mean, we're on YouTube right now. So but that is very suspect. Why are all these, and Putin has asserted that there were other type of coronaviruses as well. The Russians have asserted as much. That is coming from the Russian Department of Defense, that they were doing this gain of function research. So why was that happening 6 years ago, 4 years before the pandemic? That's a little bit suspect to me, to say the least, guys.
201 was a suspect too as well, but no matter how many times, the lockstep doctrine, there's all these things that came out years before we went through this situation. But fam, please take your tinfoil hat off, you Trumping, Nazi supporting crazy conspiracy theorist girl.
So just a reminder, this is the letter from John DeLoach to Hunter Biden, talking about the $500,000 in investment in Metabiota through Rosemont Seneca, and how they raise even more money for giants, including Goldman Sachs. And they wanted to really have their shit together, because they needed to get that deal. They really needed to get that deal to get this through. And there's the emails between Hunter and that's it. And the Rosemont Seneca, again, discussing how they were monitoring medical data that could become an essential tool for government and companies looking to spot outbreaks of infectious diseases. So the United States was interested in spotting outbreaks of infectious diseases long before this pandemic, which is interesting. Which is interesting, guys. And I think we will do a segment tying a lot of this together. That's why I said that, because I wanted to lay this out first. And when we do that segment, obviously, guys, it's going to have to be Rokfin only. So I'm going to break a little bit with this video. This is a video of the Russian side of things. Now, the Russians are accusing Hunter Biden of this directly. And here's a video of them doing that. I believe it's Sergei Lavrov as well.
Sergei Lavrov.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Поступающие материалы позволяют проследить схему взаимодействия органов США с украинскими биообъектами. Обращает на себя внимание причастность к финансированию указанной деятельности структур, близких к нынешнему руководству США. В частности, инвестиционного фонда Rosemont Seneca, который руководит Хантер Байден. Фонд обладает значительными финансовыми ресурсами в объеме не менее $2,4 миллиарда. При этом прослеживается тесная связь фонда с основными подрядчиками американского военного ведомства, включая Медхурст, которая наряду с Black & Twitch является основным поставщиком оборудования для биолабораторий Пентагона по всему миру. Масштабы программы впечатляют. Непосредственное участие в реализации, кроме военного ведомства, принимает Агентство США по международному развитию, Фонд Джорджа Сороса, Центр по контролю и профилактике заболеваний. Научное кураторство осуществляют ведущие исследовательские организации, включая Национальную лабораторию Волос-Аламача, которая разрабатывала ядерное оружие в рамках Манхэттенского проекта. Вся эта деятельность осуществляется под полным контролем Пентагона.
No? Are we muted?
We were muted.
Okay, so even though the Department of Defense is admitting this, they have to defend the State Department narrative. So they're going to say this is mostly Russian propaganda, and their position is that there's nothing nefarious here, that this is a pandemic early warning research, and that they don't know for sure what was going on. But the question remains, one of these representatives said, why is Hunter Biden in the middle of all this? Why is a disgraced son of a vice president at the heart of this? The guy with no discernible skills and a cocaine habit. I mean, yeah, because he's the son of Joe Biden and he's a useful idiot. I mean, that's what I think this is, right? And the Pozharsky, who I read about in the last slide, said that his email to Hunter Biden, that they had encountered this similar biological research before in his former job as a Ukrainian government official. And they claim that BNV worked on similar or the same projects as the proposed contract for Metabiota. So this isn't the first time these people involved have worked on these projects. And of course, as we showed you already, the government records show the Department of Defense awarded $18.4 million contract to Medhurst between February 2014 and November 2016, with $307,091 earmarked for Ukraine research projects. The U.S. Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA, also commissioned by the BNV to build a biological safety level 3 laboratory in Odessa, Ukraine in 2010, which provided enhanced equipment and training, effectively, safely, and securely identify especially dangerous pathogens. So that happened. And then, so there in this, you can see that right here in this email thread in May 2014, the RSTP partner Sherwin, and his name was Eric Sherwin, that he was communicating with Joe Biden, suggested that there are obviously some real potential synergies between Zhou's husband's work at the CDC and what Medhurst does. Something to think about. So this is, again, Zhou was that person that was called, I believe, the bat lady during the COVID outbreak. And she, because that they said that was the person where that came from. And this is another email in another sign of the deep ties between Medhurst and the Department of Defense. Hunter's RSTP business partner, Rob Walker, said he would have a friend reached out to the DoD on down the low in order to prove the company's bona fide to the top prospective investors, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, in October of 2014. So like I said, they needed they needed to get this funding and from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. So in the email, he says that they have to be they have to have all their ducks in a row. They have to have everything perfect in order to get this this funding. So let me see what else.
Dark, deep, dirty, corrupt secrets of Ukraine, all tying back to everything that's going on right now. Woo.
And just for reference, RSTP is a subsidiary of Rosemont Capital, which was the investment company that Hunter Biden founded, and also had John Kerry's stepped on Chris Hines in 2009. And the other thing, of course, that we could go into further next time is that Medhurst has close ties with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, suspected to be the source of the COVID-19 outbreak. The Wuhan Institute of Biology was a hotspot for controversial gain-of-function research that can create super strength viruses. Chinese scientists performed gain-of-function research of coronaviruses at the Wuhan lab, working alongside US-backed organization EcoHealth Alliance that has since drawn intense scrutiny over its coronavirus research since the COVID-19 pandemic. And these Chinese scientists, of course, were US-funded biolabs in Wuhan. So, and the researchers from the Wuhan Institute, Medhurst and EcoHealth Alliance published a study in 2014 on infectious diseases from bats in China, and that Shi Zhengli, the Wuhan Institute virology director of the Center for Emerging Infectious Diseases, is the one actually that became dubbed the Bat Lady for her central role in bat coronavirus research. So,
yeah, fam.
These ties are there. This is extremely interesting. Yeah. This is just the beginning of what is there. Now you have to go into what exactly.
We had all this information before, though, right? We couldn't do it, but every time you try to speak about this, I mean, they literally banned people, gave people strikes. I think we got a strike on one of the things we did, right? When it came, I can't even remember. Pretty sure it was. We were talking about Hunter and Burisma before it was cool, almost 4 years ago, fam.
Yeah.
We were screaming about it. We were screaming about Adam Schiff and, Kolomoisky and Zelensky and the Azov Battalion and John Kerry's son and Adam Schiff and his relation and Nancy Pelosi. It's all there. It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world, if not the most corrupt country in the world. And, we were doing dirty, dark things in there as well. And now it's all coming out. But it's, once again, when are people like you talk to a lot of progressives and say, hey, man, So what do you think about Joe Biden? Well, anything's better than Trump. They're still on that. They'll let these people commit murder and get away with everything just because they're playing team sports. And there's a lot of people in this country, because Donald Trump was Donald Trump and they had TDS, they'll still okay and say, well, it's not really proven what Hunter Biden is, what his
you have
is.
The money ties. Yeah. You have the money ties from the Department of Defense. You have Hunter Biden sitting on the Seneca board. You have actually funding the Seneca company. You have him sitting on the board of Burisma. You have John Kerry's son involved in Seneca. You have these scientists with emailing Hunter Biden and these investment people and getting the funding for Goldman Sachs and what was the other one? And then you have the full-on people that were also involved in the pandemic as well. So you can make your own conclusions, but what we stated was a bunch of documents with facts. Now, there are also documents that show that some of these viruses that they were looking up, these pathogens, were animal related, which is why they had the veterinary doctors there, because they're experimenting on these animals, and so they have to have veterinarians in there. So it's interesting in the context of the pandemic and also in the context of Ukraine. This is why I say that there's no such thing as a incident that is by itself, right? An isolated incident. When it comes to U.S. foreign policy, anything like that, there's no such thing as I'm an anti-imperialist and I'm against this Russia-Ukraine situation and I'm against Putin's imperialism too. You have to understand power. And I think a lot of these progressive pasta, as you said before, don't understand power. They don't understand that you cannot equate what Putin is doing to what the United States is doing. And then also you throw in the pandemic, the gain of function research, you throw in all of this, that they were trying to get rid of this and that they were afraid of Russians exposing this, and you throw in what Russia is doing, putting their foot down against NATO and exposing this as well. And of course, Hunter Biden's Burisma story scandal that we weren't allowed to talk about. And then you have the whole thing, because again, the United States is an empire. They're seeking to gain control. And they told you as much in April of 2014 in those emails, that through this biological research, they could guarantee an attempt to gain Ukraine's sovereignty and independence from Russia. So you have a video?
Well, yeah, you couldn't report any of this stuff. You know why? Because it was all unverified. Matt Orff, ladies and gentlemen, otherwise known as Orphalia.
Yes.
Incriminating evidence allegedly found on a laptop belonging to Biden.
Some sort of Russian disinformation campaign effort.
One eternity later.
Biden emails finally authenticated according to the New York Times.
It's rewind time.
It's a lie. Altered or fake, unverified emails.
The story did not quite land due to the lack of verification.
Listen, can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it can't be verified.
I don't even want to report this. This is one of the most powerful families in Washington.
Liz, I'm a journalist.
Okay, I would love if you guys would start doing that verification.
No, we're not going to do your work for you.
It's a journalist's job.
Not anymore.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
Not really stories, just pure distractions. No serious journalist should fall for it.
It's a journalist's job to find out if this is verified.
The bottom line is we cannot confirm the story.
Experts say the emails cannot be authenticated.
The mainstream media is not reporting on this story because we can't authenticate this material.
The Hunter Biden laptop material is genuine.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
It just lacks credibility. The fact that it appeared in the New York Post,
the only place low enough to put this orphan bastard story in print.
Obvious disinformation.
It is so obviously a Russian operation.
So obviously disinformation.
So obviously a Russian plot. Tell me why it's so obviously a Russian plot to you.
This is just classic textbook Soviet-Russian tradecraft at work.
Right, exactly. And this is classic, very classic.
classic Russian disinformation tactic.
Your classic disinformation campaign.
We shouldn't look at it as anything other than a Russian disinformation operation.
Known Kremlin disinformation.
Russians would be my number one guess.
Obviously, Russia.
Russian disinformation operation.
Russian disinformation.
Pushing Russian disinformation.
It does bear the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
Stop being an unwitting idiot.
Hunter Biden's laptop looks like it's tied to Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
Is that laptop yours?
I don't know. I truly...
You don't know?
The serious answer is that I truly do not know the answer to that.
Did you leave a laptop with a repairman in Wilmington? Not that you remember?
No. I truly don't know.
Are you missing a laptop?
Not that I know of.
What? This whole operation looks right out of the Kremlin playbook.
The playbook of Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation put into the haystack.
Russian disinfo.
Sounds like bullshit. I mean, who takes a laptop with their most personal information, drops it off, and never comes back for it?
You read the book and you'll realize that I wasn't keeping tabs on possessions very well for about a 4-year period of time.
The Russian disinformation campaign.
Disinformation from the Russians. Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden.
The Biden campaign says this is Russian disinformation.
There's overwhelming evidence that the Russians are engaged. It's a Russian plan.
Russian disinformation.
Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
History will expose you all as fools and useful idiots for the Russians. The idiocy, the sheer idiocy.
50 former intelligence officials signed on to a letter yesterday saying that the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's emails has all of the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Russia, Giuliani.
Don't trust anything that he's telling you. This is Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation campaign.
Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation campaign. Russian disinformation meant to harm our democracy.
Disinformation by the Russians.
The fruits of a foreign intelligence operation.
Part of that bigger Russian disinformation effort.
A Russian intelligence operation.
Connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Linked to a foreign intelligence operation.
Connected to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Tied to an ongoing Russian disinformation effort.
Connected to a Russian disinformation campaign.
Linked to a foreign intelligence operation.
Likely coming from Russian intelligence.
To people familiar with the matter told NBC News.
We now know that Russian disinformation or foreign disinformation or even campaign disinformation period is as dangerous to our democracy as anything exposed in these emails.
Fam.
And that was when they were more focused on finding something, dirty on him, like money ties to whatever, to just Burisma and gas. This is money ties to bioweapons, to funding of bioweapons. And it's way bigger than Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to this. The U.S. government is clearly involved. In spite of their denial, they were involved in the funding of these biolabs. Hunter Biden is now, you can see how that's a part of this funding was happening. And Vladimir Putin and Russia are exposing all of this simultaneously while pushing back against the empire. It's kind of crazy, fam, how, and I will say this, I will boast about this. We have been on the right side of these issues for a long time. And so many people have said, you're a right winger, you're this, you're a Putin, whatever. But this is now coming full circle. All these things are sort of hitting this pinnacle. And it's funny how they're all interconnected. And I think, our audience is very aware of how this is. But so many people are just starting on this journey where they're just starting to talk about function. They're just starting to understand the Hunter Biden thing. The reason they were so adamant about blocking that story wasn't about the gas company ties. It was about this.
So, fam, I wanted to bring a video with some real misinformation or disinformation. So I have it for you.
Oh God.
You've seen this. This is crazy shit. And Oz, make sure we play it to the very end because pay attention to the very end of it. Take a look.
If you don't glow the sky, I will die. If
sky, Mom will cry. If you don't glow the sky, he'll lose home. If you don't glow the sky, they'll be doomed. If you don't glow the sky will still fight. If you don't glow the sky, will fill the night. If you don't glow the sky, he might win. Now look in the eyes and sing again.
If you don't close the sky. Now listen.
I would like to invite to the stage Bill Crystal, who is the founding director of Defending Democracy Together.
Oh, fam, at the very end, please come to the stage. At the end, he literally says, at the Sarah McLachlan form of if you don't close the sky, they will die.
If you don't start World War III, we will die. No, moron. If you start World War III, everybody will die. Come on.
And then
Jesus
they go,
Christ.
will Bill Crystal please come to the stage? Bill Crystal. I mean, you can't make this shit up, fam. We live in a cartoon.
We do. We do live in somebody's fucked up little child aliens cartoon.
We do.